For decades, the idea of unidentified objects in the sky was treated as a joke, something you'd expect in tabloids, old sci-fi movies, or conspiracy forums at 3 a.m. But in 2020, something strange happened. Not a leak, not a rumor, not a blurry phone video. The Pentagon officially confirmed that several recorded encounters by U.S. Navy pilots were real and unexplained. No aliens, no invasión, just one uncomfortable sentence. We don't know what these objects are, and that single sentence quietly changed everything. Let's slow down and unpack what was actually admitted and what was not. First, the word UFO quietly disappeared. Instead, the U.S. government started using a new term, UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. Why does this matter? Because UFO comes with decades of cultural baggage. Flying saucers, little green men, X-Files music playing in your head. UAP sounds boring, bureaucratic, almost harmless. And that was the point. By changing the language, the discussion shifted from science fiction to national security. So what exactly was confirmed? In April 2020, the Pentagon released and authenticated 3 videos recorded by U.S. Navy pilots between 2004 and 2015. These are not civilian recordings. They were captured by advanced military sensors, infrared cameras, radar systems, and tracking software used on fighter jets. The Pentagon stated clearly, yes, the videos are real. Yes, the objects were physically present. And no, they cannot identify what they were. Not foreign drones, not known aircraft, not weather balloons, just unknown. That's it. No dramatic speeches. No press conference with dramatic music. And almost no one noticed, but pilots noticed. Because these encounters weren't rare, Navy pilots started reporting objects that could hover without visible propulsion, accelerate instantly, move against strong winds, drop from high altitude to sea level in seconds, all while leaving no heat signature that would suggest engines or exhaust. In other words, physics didn't like what it was seeing. And here's where things get really uncomfortable. These objects were frequently observed near U.S. military training areas. Not random places, not remote deserts, highly controlled airspace, which raised a serious question inside the Pentagon. If these are foreign technologies, how do we miss a leap this big? And if they are not foreign, then what are they? At this point, the conversation stopped being about aliens and started being about something much scarier to governments. Not knowing, because militaries don't like unknowns. That's why, shortly after the videos were confirmed, the U.S. government created a new task force, then another office, then expanded it again. Eventually, it became ARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Yes, that's a real name. Yes, it sounds like something generated by a bureaucratic AI. Their job is simple on paper. Collect reports of UAPs across air, sea, and space. Analyze them. Explain them, if possible. And if not, document them anyway. By the early 2020s, Congress started holding public hearings. Let that sink in. For the first time in history, government officials were sitting under oath, saying things like, "We have observed objects we cannot identify. We do not currently have explanations. We are not ruling out any hypotheses," including the ones they very carefully refused to name. But notice something important. At no point did the Pentagon say, "These are extraterrestrial." They also did not say, "These are not." They simply said, "We don't know," which might be the most honest and disturbing answer possible. Because here's the thing, you don't need aliens for this to be unsettling. If these objects represent unknown human technology, that implies a massive intelligence failure, a technological leap that somehow bypassed every intelligence agency on Earth. If they are natural phenomena, then we've discovered something about our atmosphere or physics that we fundamentally don't understand. And if, just if, there's something else entirely, then humanity might not be as observant as it thinks. Now let's zoom out. Space exploration taught us something uncomfortable already. We've explored less than 5% of our oceans. We've mapped only a fraction of near-Earth space in detail. And we constantly discover objects in our own solar system we didn't know existed. Rogue asteroids, Interstellar visitors like Oumuamua, strange cosmic signals that vanish before we can explain them. So the idea that there are things in our skies we don't fully understand is actually very on brand for humanity. The difference now is that governments are admitting it. Quietly, carefully, without panic, without conclusions, just facts. And maybe that's the most important shift. For decades, the question was, do you believe in UFOs? Today the question is, why are we so uncomfortable with uncertainty? Because the Pentagon didn't confirm aliens. They confirmed something far more unsettling. Limits. Limits to our sensors. Limits to our understanding. Limits to our confidence. And for a species that likes to believe it has everything under control, that's a hard pill to swallow. So the next time someone asks, did the Pentagon confirm UFOs? The honest answer is, they confirmed something real was there. They confirmed they recorded it. And they confirmed they don't know what it was. And sometimes, not knowing is the most important discovery of all. But the story doesn't end with the Pentagon's admission. In many ways, that was just the beginning. Because once you publicly admit you don't understand something, you create a new problem. People start asking questions. And some of those questions are uncomfortable. For example, why did these encounters happen for years before anyone spoke publicly? Why were pilots discouraged for reporting them? And why did the tone suddenly change in the late 2010s? To understand that, we need to look at how military culture works. For decades, reporting unidentified objects was career poison. Pilots worried about being labeled unreliable. Engineers worried about being associated with UFO stories. So most encounters were logged, classified, and quietly forgotten. Not because someone was hiding aliens, but because uncertainty is inconvenient. Then something shifted. Advanced sensors became too good to ignore. Radar, infrared, satellite tracking all started seeing the same anomalies. At that point, dismissing everything as misidentification stopped working. When multiple independent systems detect the same object at the same time in the same place, skepticism becomes harder. That's when silence becomes riskier than transparency. And transparency brings attention. Soon, reports didn't just come from the United States. Other countries quietly admitted similar encounters. France, Japan, the UK, different airspace, different militaries. Same problem. Objects that don't behave like anything we know. At this point, the conversation shifted again. From what are these things? To something much more strategic. What happens if we never figure it out? Because modern defense systems rely on prediction. You need to know how fast something can move, how it can maneuver, how it reacts to interception. Unknown objects break that logic completely. And that's why UAPs are now discussed alongside cyber threats and space debris, not paranormal phenomena. They are anomalies, and anomalies are dangerous, even without hostile intent. But let's pause here and address the elephant in the room. Aliens. Why does the Pentagon avoid the word so carefully? Because once you say it out loud, you trigger consequences you can't control. Public panic, geopolitical tension, religious interpretation, media chaos. Even if extraterrestrial life were the correct explanation, which has not been confirmed, announcing it without absolute certainty would be reckless. And governments hate reckless. So instead, they do what institutions always do. They narrow the scope. They say, we are investigating. We have no evidence of extraterrestrial origin. We continue to analyze, all of which are technically true and deeply unsatisfying. But here's something most discussions miss. The universe is old, incomprehensibly old. The Milky Way alone contains over 100 billion stars, many with planets, some inhabitable zones. Statistically, life elsewhere is not a radical idea. What is radical is assuming we would immediately recognize it. Human perception is biased. Our sensors are tuned to our physics. Our expectations are shaped by our biology. If something operates differently, moves differently, emits energy differently, it might not look like anything we're prepared to interpret, which means the scariest possibility isn't invasion. It's misunderstanding. Something passing through our environment without interacting with us in ways we understand, like fish reacting to a passing airplane. Present, real, and completely indifferent. That idea is far more unsettling than flying saucers, and it aligns disturbingly well with what the Pentagon actually said. No communication, no intent, no explanation, just observation. Now, let's connect this to a bigger pattern. Every major leap in science started with anomalies. Mercury's orbit didn't behave correctly until Einstein rewrote gravity. Radiation noise confused astronomers until we discovered the cosmic microwave background. Unusual spectral lines puzzled scientists until quantum mechanics emerged. Anomalies are not errors. They are invitations. The Pentagon didn't confirm aliens. They confirmed anomalies. And anomalies have a history of forcing humanity to rethink reality. So what happens next? More data, better sensors, more transparency, slowly, carefully, and probably more unanswered questions. Because if history teaches us anything, it's this. The universe does not care about our comfort. It reveals itself on its own terms, at its own pace, sometimes quietly, sometimes through blurry infrared footage recorded by a confused Navy pilot. And maybe that's the real story here. Not visitors, not conspiracies, but a reminder that even with satellites, supercomputers, and global surveillance, there are still things above us and around us that we don't fully understand. And admitting that might be the most human thing the Pentagon has ever done.